Hey guys, what is up? I'm here with another video. Today we're going to be making agua fresca de melon. Melon de honeydew. I'm going to be using my, which blender is this? The Ninja blender. Hello. My brother's in the background playing his game while I make my agua fresca. So first you want to cut up your melon. I save the seeds for mine because I like to grow plants so I can use them. I didn't get a spoon, which I should have. This is what I usually use to scoop out my seeds from my honeydew melon. Oh, it's dirty. Okay. And just scoop out all of these seeds and put them aside in a bowl so you can separate them later. I actually have some honeydew and cantaloupe growing in my garden. I just don't have any on my plants yet. My cantaloupes are trying hard to put on a fruit, but my honeydews are not putting on anything. You have to make sure you get all these seeds out because you don't want them ending up in your agua fresca. It's going to be gritty. We are going to be straining the agua fresca, but sometimes when you blend up the seeds, they get through the mesh. So you're going to have that in your drink. Okay, and that was the second melon. That one wasn't as hard. So now that we have those out, I'm going to cut mine into, I want to say, no, not fourths, probably eighths. Let me cut this on the plate just so I don't accidentally cut through the table. See, like, this is my hat. Well, this is technically a fourth. So then we're going to be cutting our fourth into a fourth. Because the smaller you have it, the less the blender has to work, which means the more it can grind up. And that's the best for you. And then you can just go along the rind. I washed my hands before this, so I should be good. And then I'm just gonna cut that up into cubes, save this aside for composting. Your hands are gonna be sticky out of this after this if you're not wearing gloves. My hands are always sticky after I make agua fresca. Usually whenever I'm making agua fresca, I always make it with honeydew because honeydew, you don't really need to add that much sugar. And with all the other ones, I feel like you have to add sugar, like with pepino. You kind of need sugar because cucumber has very low sweetness naturally, when honeydew has a lot of sweetness. If you, I didn't get the blades to the blender. I got the blender piece. We're gonna add our blender piece, and now we're going to add in our eighth of our honeydew. But this is good if you're trying to look for naturally sweet juice, or if you're trying to sort of cut back on juice, but you kind of still need that sugar. Honeydew has a lot of natural sugars in it, and it tastes exactly like juice. My baby sister, I dilute her some in some water, and she could drink a whole bunch of bottles of these. And also it's just a lot easier of a way to take down some water. But this is very time consuming. If you're wanting to compost the peels of these of these melons like these, I would recommend cutting these into cubes as well, because if you're trying to compost those peels and you're trying to compost them as is, they're going to take way longer to break down as they are than if you cut them up into smaller pieces. I just want to have these in smaller chunks so it's easier to cut them out. But cut them however big or small you want. Just the smaller they are, the easier it is to process them in the blender. And if you know anything about melons, you know that sometimes they're expensive. Whenever I got this one, I think it was probably $2 because it's melon season, like for honeydews, cantaloupes, and stuff. So there's a lot of them out there, so it's gonna be a lot cheaper. But in like the winter times, if you don't have a greenhouse, then it's gonna be very hard to come by some cantaloupe or some honeydew. So it's gonna be way more expensive. I've read things saying that drinking agua fresca with fruits like this helps you digest the nutrients a lot easier, because you're taking it in a liquid form, so your body doesn't have to process it as much because you've already done most of the churning yourself. But this, you won't need to add sugar if you don't use that much sugar as is. But if you feel like you need some sugar after you taste it, I would definitely recommend tasting this before you add sugar, because that was one of the mistakes that I made whenever I first made it. Whenever I first made it, like I was using other things to make agua frescas, and usually you add sugar to those because they don't have natural sugars, and I didn't know that it was different for honeydew. So I had made honeydew and I added like half a cup of sweetener, and it was incredibly sweet. So I would recommend for sure tasting it before you add sweetener, especially since honeydew is already very sweet. This is my own little ASMR. Chopping up the honeydews.
Don't forget your products, dog.
And since this is a full melon, you're gonna take about 8 cups of water whenever you're putting this in the blender. Now, melons alone, they do produce a lot of water on their own. So you're not gonna need as much water with a normal agua fresca. So I would say start out with having your 8 cups of water, but only add 4 cups at a time. And that's mostly because you'll need to know your consistency on how thick you want your agua fresca before you finish it.
I sat here and asked you a question. I was like, dog, do you need help?
Because 8 cups of agua fresca might dilute it a little bit too much, and it's gonna make the natural sugars in the agua fresca have less potency, which means you're gonna taste them less. You are gonna have a lot of pulp from your agua fresca afterwards. For that, you can compost that too. I would just recommend that you finally, you keep on straining it until you feel like you've gotten all the pulp out. Because I've strained my agua fresca about 6 times and I've still had pulp coming out afterwards.
This dude might need some money. Let me get that. Fuck nah. Shut up, my damn car. That motherfucker. Police, dog.
But this is why I'm saying your hands are gonna get sticky if you are using, if you aren't using gloves. See, look, we still have one more piece of honeydew to get to, and almost our whole blender is filled up. Now this is gonna go down tremendously. Like, it's probably gonna be to half or a quarter of this whenever I add in the water. So I don't think this is gonna be, it's not gonna make that much, because usually whenever I do this it fills up like a quart. and not a full gallon. Because honeydew and cantaloupe in general are mostly water. So they break down really easily. And actually, before I drink Agua Fresca's de Melon, I didn't really like cantaloupe or honeydew. But after I started drinking Agua Fresca, I like eating like cantaloupe, honeydew, coconut, things like that. And it's all because of the different Agua Frescas that I've tasted with them. I get to like appreciate the natural flavors that come with them. Oh. My hands are filthy. Okay. So now I have my melon. And on the side here, mine has like where it says the amount of cups that I have. I have some cucumber water here that I'm just gonna add. And see where that gets me. A little cucumber got in there, I'm not gonna worry about that. Okay, so that was right below 4 cups. So I'm going to start blending this, and then I'm going to see if I need to add another 4 cups. Okay guys, so that was the first round on the blender. As I said, the more you blend this, the more it's gonna break down, and the more it's gonna be easier to separate it later, because you're gonna add it into a big jug like this. And when you sit it in the fridge overnight or however long you want to sit it in there, this won't last more than about 4 days or 2 to 3 days. Trust me, you'll drink it by then. But whenever you sit it in the fridge for that long, it'll naturally separate, and there's gonna be a whole bunch of water from the melon on the bottom of this, and the rest of the top part is gonna be mostly the pulp. So as you can see right now, it's a light green, and that means it has way too much pulp in it. So I'm going to add the rest of our water, because right now it says that it's at 8 cups, but that's with the pulp added. So filling it up with the rest of our water will bring the liquid that we added up to 8 cups, which is just meaning that we're gonna have way more agua fresca at the end. Okay guys, so officially our agua fresca is 98% done. So after this, you would normally want to strain this, but for me, I usually strain it one time, and then I put it in the fridge, and then it separates naturally, and then I scoop out the pulp as I get the pulp. Like, you can drink it like this, but there's a lot of people who don't like agua fresca natural because it's just more gritty, and people don't like how grainy the agua fresca is like this. Now, this would be the time where you taste it and see how sweet it is. Right now, for me, this is the perfect sweetness that I like it, which is the natural sweetness. And it's like a nice little shamrock shake color. And this fits perfectly in my jug. Now, I'm gonna let this sit in the fridge for about probably 5 hours. I'll just wait until the end of the day, and then you'll see that it naturally separates. You can see that it's naturally separating already at the bottom, where it's this darker green here. That's the natural agua fresca, the water and the flavor from the melon separating from the pulp. And soon that's all going to be at the top, and it's going to be very condensed, and you can just scoop that out and put it in a separate bowl and then compost that down if you want to. But I'll make an update on how it's looking after a few hours. You can see that it's not going to be that long since this was cold. It's already separating fairly quick.